Hola, buenos noches, and good evening. This is your weekly news report, and I'm your host, Pedro. The Supreme Court on Monday turned away a long-shot attempt to overturn the landmark 2015 ruling that legalized same-sex marriage nationwide. Without comment, the justices rejected an appeal brought by Kim Davis, a former county clerk in Kentucky who was sued in 2015 for refusing to issue marriage licenses because of her opposition to same-sex marriage based on her religious beliefs. Although the court has a 6-3 conservative majority, none of the other justices joined Thomas's opinion. The Supreme Court's action was welcomed by LGBTQ advocates. Today, the Supreme Court affirmed what we all know. Marriage equality is the law of the land, Kevin Jennings, CEO of Lambda Legal, said in a statement. Davis refused to issue any marriage licenses in the immediate aftermath of the Obergefell decision. She said that as a conservative Christian who opposed same-sex marriage, she should have a religious right not to put her name on marriage licenses involving same-sex couples. Davis was ordered to issue a license for Moore and Ermold, but defied the court injunction and still refused to do so. The judge then held her in contempt, and she was jailed for 6 days. With the Supreme Court appeal now over, the case will return to the lower court. Now here's Rafa with a look at our next top story.
President Donald Trump on Wednesday night signed into law legislation that reopens the federal government and ends an acrimonious 43-day shutdown, the longest in American history. Trump's signature, which restores funding that has been frozen or halted for weeks, came shortly after the House voted 222 to 209 to send him the measure. 6 Democrats joined nearly all Republicans in voting yes, and 2 Republicans joined most Democrats in voting no. The Senate approved the same legislation Monday when 8 Democrats peeled off and voted with Republicans to break a filibuster and end the shutdown. The legislative package includes a minibus of 3 appropriations bills providing funding through next September and keeps the rest of the government open at current levels through Jan. 30. It includes full funding for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as food stamps, which will keep the program afloat through September. More than 40 million Americans rely on SNAP. The bill does not include an extension of enhanced subsidies under the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, after Republicans held firm against extending those funds beyond 2025. That means more than 20 million Americans could see their premiums spike next year. Now, back to Pedro for our next top story.
The president on Friday signed an executive order, exempting a range of food imports including coffee, beef, and bananas from his reciprocal tariff policies. The White House said the president had determined that certain agricultural products shall no longer be subject to the reciprocal tariffs. Among the items being exempted are coffee, tea, tropical fruits, fruit juices, cocoa, oranges, and tomatoes, the White House said. The rollback comes amid nationwide complaints of high grocery prices, despite his campaign pledge to lower prices. The president's order comes a little more than a week after Democrats defeated Republican gubernatorial candidates in Virginia and New Jersey. A recent poll showed that the vast majority of voters, about 2/3, think the president hasn't lived up to his promises to curb inflation and improve the economy.
Hello everyone, I'm your Chief Meteorologist Ariana with a look at your weather for the week ahead. Early next week, cooling and unsettling northeast upper trough exit. With trough energy with an associated surface system with spread, a progressive swath with some moderate rainfall eastward Tuesday into Wednesday from the mid-Mississippi and Ohio valleys to the mid-Atlantic. Well, upstream. Digging upper troughing will meanwhile reach the west coast to promote another round of enhanced precipitation. Moisture feed across portions of the southwestern desert region, including California and Arizona. Too snowy. Rockies elevations will be much weaker than the system during the short-range period. However, into mid-later, next week downstream system progression and lead moisture and instability return flow into wavy fronts over the central to eastern U.S. and should lead to emergence of a growing area of moderate to heavy rains and some strong thunderstorms from the south-central U.S. eastward back west. Yet another East Pacific system may offer enhanced precipitation to the west coast into Thursday and Friday, with associated closed low potential into the desert southwest next Saturday. Precipitation could be moderate or heavy at times. Prefrontal temperatures will be much warmer than average for much of the south-central southern U.S. next week, to include some record temperatures, upwards to 10 to 20 degrees above normal. This translates to highs commonly into the 80s, with some warming shifting to the east late next weekend. Meanwhile, rounds of troughing in California to the desert southwest will lead to below-average highs, hovering next week about 5 to 10 degrees below average.
That will do it for this week's weekly news report. As always, thank you for watching and have a great week. Como siempre, gracias por vernos y que tengas una gran semana.